and introduce Lori McCarthy. She's the executive director at Herren Wellness, and Chris Herren. And I just wanted to let everyone know that, and Lori wanted to let you know that I have a few more questions about your processes there at Herren Wellness. When you're done with your presentation, I'd like to ask a few, and then we'll open it up to everyone here. We'll have 10 to 15 minutes at the end to ask questions. With that, I'm going to give you to Lori McCarthy and Chris Herren. Thanks.
It's a pleasure to be here. As someone who's been traveling the country for the last 10 years, talking about, not only recovery, but addiction, anytime I have an opportunity to discuss is something that I am extremely grateful for. In 2018, Lori, myself, my wife, we opened Herren Wellness. And for the 10 years prior of my sobriety, it was my dream. My dream was to be part of the recovery process, take part in other people's journey, and just witness, the miracles that happen. And, in 2008, my wife dropped me off at treatment, and it was very evident that she really wasn't included and really welcome, to be quite honest with you. We pulled up to the front door of the treatment center. She got out to walk in with me, and she was met outside and said, we'll take it from here. The impact that my alcoholism and addiction had on my family. I saw my wife cry herself to sleep, and I saw the look in my children's eyes, sadly, when I would ask them to take a drive with me. So that always impacted me. And I said to myself, when I open one day, the family is going to be just as big of a part of our program as the person who comes in struggling from substance use disorder. And, we pride ourselves on that. I think so many people miss out on witnessing, families healing together and reconnecting. I often tell people, sadly, families are so consumed with our alcoholism and addiction, and yet we want to keep them away from our recovery. And they deserve that. And they deserve to have their own, parallel track to recover on and take pride in. And, the impact that my recovery has had not only on myself, but it's had such impact on my family and everybody who loves me. I often tell the guests at Herren Wellness, I knew that I was experiencing something absolutely special when I saw my sobriety in my children's eyes. To see them smiling with their eyes and the confidence and the comfort and the pride that they've taken in their life. And they know, if you sat down with my son, Christopher, who's 22, and my daughter, Samantha, who's 19, and if you ask them what's the most important component of our family, they would say recovery, because of what they've had to endure and go through and struggle with in my addiction, and how recovery has completely changed the trajectory, our path as a family. So, here at Herren Wellness, no family is left out. Some guests come in and they're reluctant to be part, to bring their families in. But very rarely, I would say, can we not convince them to share this journey with their loved ones. And, for me as an owner, but also as a person in recovery, there is nothing like witnessing, a young boy or girl pull up to this property for the first time and get out of the car and run to their mom or dad. And I think, for us, the setting, I often say culture is extremely important, and the setting where we recover. And, when children when family pull up to our location, they feel like they're home. They feel confident and comfortable that their dad or mom, son or daughter is in a very special place. And for years, I think the stigma around substance use, mental health, what children, family members envision, what wellness centers or treatment centers look like, they're just not true. And we work really hard to set that setting for families when they show up. And today is a beautiful day in Seekonk, Massachusetts, and Laurie and I are here on the property. And as I pulled in this morning, I was told that a group of guests here are bringing all their children to swim in the pool together. So, that's the bond that begins in early recovery. And I think it's an unbelievable incentive, and it's part of everybody's journey, and we're just happy and grateful that we can provide it.
Mm-hmm. We also have such a respect and understanding of what the families are going through. So we recognize and know that families are, they're, like the doctor said earlier, Dr. Thompson, addiction kind of manifests itself in the behavior of the people that they love. And with that behavior, there's anger and there's fear and there's terror and there's sadness, and it's all okay. That's completely normal. And so what we do is we embrace each family member, and every family member has a different relationship or a different dynamic with the person that's here. And it's respecting all of those different perspectives and how they look at it, what their relationships are, and letting them know that that's okay. And we're here to help, put it all in the right place. So, we have a great deal of respect for not only our guests, but for all of the people that are in their lives that mean so much to each other. And honestly, it's, when we look back on the 3 years, I would say that the families that have gone through this program with us, they're better for it. I think this recovery process, and everybody would, the Dr. Thompson and Dawn and Chris and everybody would agree that this process makes families better. And it's really hard to see that in the beginning. It's almost impossible to really see it. And if we say it, it's almost like unbelievable. So we have to wait, and we have to wait for people to actually feel it. And like Chris said, on a day like today, on a Saturday, when families come down to spend time, they can be here all day, they can have lunch, they can go out to lunch, they can play in the pool, play tennis. You see like this light in their eyes where that healing is happening, and there's hope. And I think that's the biggest, the biggest thing that we can do for families and individuals is offer hope that, better days are ahead. There's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of healing to be done, but that it's possible. And a lot of our team and our staff, they have been, recipients of that. And, our job really here at Herren Wellness is to inspire and motivate and really model what recovery is.
I just want to also say, and maybe Dr. Thompson can add, after when we're in the Q&A portion of this, but it baffles me for years why the family was not integrated into the recovery process. And I don't know if it's laziness. I don't know if it's not willing to do the work. But, what we see here is people who recover with their families alongside of them, the opportunity and the chance to long-term sustainable sobriety increases. And, we, like Laurie just said, on a Saturday, I've had multiple people say to me, why would you let families stay there all day? There's too much risk involved. There's too much reward, and I'm tired of, I'm not going to look at risk. I'm going to look at the reward, and to witness people spend, 6, 7, 8 hours together on a beautiful weekend is special, because we miss out on so much, in active addiction, and we don't spend that quality time with family that we all deserve. So that quality time and those intimate moments, to witness them share that here is extremely special.
A few questions, if I could go ahead and ask.
Of course.
Okay. So the first one I wanted to ask is, what does an average day look like for a guest at Herren Wellness, and our families invited to visit campus, or, which you've already covered that, but what that would look like?
Sure. An average day is, their guests are woken up by our staff if they're not already up on their own, always with a smile, always, how are you doing? We go into some type of fitness or physical health, whether it's yoga or working out with a personal trainer in the gym, walking the track, starting with fresh air and getting the body moving, regardless of what condition somebody comes in. We kind of, cater to that. We have a check-in, we have process group, we have lunch in the afternoons. There's activities, holistic services. We have acupuncture and hyperbaric oxygen therapy. We have massage therapy, usually an outdoor activity. They meet with their individual life coaches. Family sessions will happen. We'll go off site and do something fun. The afternoons can be very fluid and change. Throughout the week, we have recovery support groups. We have adult children of alcoholics groups. In the evenings, we have refuge recovery, smart recovery, Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. We really want to educate and prevent our guests and present to our guests every pathway to recovery. Give them an understanding of what each of those are. We have people come in and facilitate these groups for us that are either on staff or they're guest speakers. And it's there's just an openness to the community in Virginia. We have 50 acres. Here up in Seekonk, we have 6. The staff and the guests are always integrating with each other. Our team is always, welcoming a new person or sitting down and speaking to somebody that's been here for a few months. One of the beauties is that, when somebody new comes in, it's almost like a positive vibe. Everybody wants to be part of welcoming that person. Everybody wants to be part of making sure that they're comfortable and giving them you're going to feel better. It's going to be okay. And we have the luxury of having people that are brand new or that have been here for a few months. So there's a lot of recovery in the room or, on the property. So that would be a typical day.
Great. Looks like we have some questions from the audience too. Are you ready for those?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
One is in line with that. Does Herren Wellness offer services when guests leave the facility, and does that benefit the family as well?
Yeah. So we've developed this, like Chris said, prior to COVID, we kind of called it an open campus type of thing. And now that things are opening up again, it's a lot easier for us to implement that. So when people, it's very important to us that when people leave, that they know that they are welcome back at any time. They have access to all of our staff. They can come on to the property, visit anytime. They can shoot a text and say, you know what, I'm having sort of a rough day, would love to come in and join the group, meet some new people. We find that so critical and so important that we want to be like a base camp for folks and for families. Families and guests have access to us forever. Again, we're a team and an organization that we have decided that we are going to share our phone numbers. They do have access to us. They have access to managers. They have access to the team, the recovery coaching. We do 3 alumni meetings a week. 1 is on campus, 2 are on Zoom. So we are completely connected, and that's what builds this community. In the last 3 years, we have hundreds of people that are like, they feel like they're family. They consider themselves part of our community, and the amount of help that they give to each other it's unbelievable. The alumni program and what they will do for each other and for each other's families. Families have access to us at any time, day or night, 7 days a week. We're always going to answer the phone, because we know that after someone leaves, it's as critical a time as before. People are worried, they're scared. There's a lot of dynamics going on. We have recovery coaching that we offer, that we will have a recovery coach work with a family and an individual to kind of be that middle person that a family can call and say, I'm kind of worried or I'm scared. And the recovery coach can act as sort of like the liaison. Like, I've spoken to them today, they're doing okay, or not. Like, if something goes wrong and relapse occurs, like, somebody can reach out to us immediately, and we're going to do everything we can to help restabilize, get them back on track. So the after Herren Wellness is something we're really proud of. There's no financial fee to it at all. It is as good for us and all the people here than it is for them.
And our alumni program, it's beautiful to watch, because our current guests have an opportunity to witness long-term recovery, and and see people pull up on the property who, once they come back here, it's like they've never left, and they reintegrate right into the groups, right onto the property. And for current guests in early recovery, to sit there and watch former guests who have completely changed not only their life but their family's life, it's hopeful. It gives our current guests a lot of hope. We just had a former guest yesterday come on and celebrate 3 years sober. And, that former guest is a special man, and he worked really hard and he committed himself while he was here. He had a beautiful family, a beautiful home, and stayed here for 4 months, and really worked on himself. And to see him come back and celebrate 3 years, and he was a middle-aged man. And, to the middle-aged men and women who are currently here, to hear him about the pride he takes and the connection he has and the commitment to come here every Wednesday night, and how, recovery has not only changed him, but his family's life. It's important, because, hope is critical in early recovery. I have paintings in here of the promises, and the promises is something that I would listen to every day in AA meetings, and just the words, it gave me hope, and I needed that. So it's another layer that we implement here that gives our guests, some tools and an opportunity to see long-term recovery. But as well, like Lori said, is to establish a network and connections, friendships in recovery.
And we have quite a few questions coming in from the audience, so we'll get to those in a moment. Some great questions. So we find many members of our recovery community partake in virtual family support groups. Do you offer support groups for families of your guests?
We've provided a platform both at my foundation and here where families can kind of put their stake in the ground and say, I'm part of this and proud to be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then what would you say sets Herren Wellness apart from other residential recovery centers?
Gosh.
I'd say like the individualized aspect. I think that we have created a model that you have to meet a criteria, so to speak, to be part of our residential program. It can be anything from somebody struggling with anxiety or depression, they're not feeling well, they're not doing well in life, to marijuana use, to chronic relapsing. We've created a model that everyone is welcome, every struggle is respected, and everyone is on an individualized program. Some people can't disconnect from work. Some people are, caring for and financially responsible for families. Some people won't seek treatment because they can't have access to phone, or they can't connect to work, or they can't connect to school. So we allow, somebody to not have to take a semester off of college. You can do your online courses here. Someone that is working can connect to work and still be part of that.
But I think it's not what sets us apart, right? I think we've created something that we can be very proud of. And, we're in recovery, and, to create something that we can stand on and really be prideful of and proud of is something that, I go home every night and I'm grateful. So to have, to be in a situation where you create this atmosphere and you only have 24 people, to me is special. I think, I went to a treatment center that had 96. I lived in a halfway house that had 30 plus, and then I was in a sober house with 16 to 18 guys. So, to be here and watch all 24 people really, really kind of dive in and connect with one another it is special.
You mentioned earlier, smart recovery, refuge recovery, NA. So why do you feel it's important to support multiple avenues to treatment, inpatient, outpatient, holistic, 12-step?
I look at it from, I remember when I wrote the book and on my life and in my addiction and early recovery. And I remember, getting the final edit from ESPN of Unguarded. And, there were many nights and many moments that my wife and I laid in bed and thought about like these really tough moments that maybe we should take out. Maybe that's too transparent. Maybe we're being too honest. And we always came to the conclusion that like I would regret if that in my moment that I took out of the film or the book, if that could help someone, if that one person it would resonate with and land on, then that's what matters. And creating this atmosphere where, I'm an AA guy, I'm 12 steps. That's where I found it. That's where what I believe in. But I know it's not for everyone. And, I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't offer other pathways of recovery. And, fortunately, we've seen, multiple guests here celebrate long-term recovery, through other pathways.
we have a question that came in from the audience. How do you handle a more toxic family environment at Heron? If the family is less inclined to get involved versus those that recognize their role in their own healing process in addition to the recovery of their loved ones suffering from the disease?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and it happens, often. And I think that help people look at things from a place of compassion and understanding and perspective. It's not always going to be perfect. It may not be perfect for a while, but if people, if you can stay focused on, if a guest can stay focused on their own recovery, and be, say what you mean, don't see it meanly, like show up, with compassion and understanding, which is really hard to do sometimes. That's, things are going to get better. A situation may not change, a person, place, or thing may not change, but a perspective can change and an open heart can change. And I think that that's sort of we take it from that approach, and on the family side as well, where there's been a lot of damage done, where there's so much hurt and pain and maybe lots of some trauma. Again, it's an approach of compassion and understanding. And at some point, like Chris talked about the promises earlier, those things will get better. It may not get fixed in 30 days, but the opportunity to put things in their right place and have an understanding and an acceptance around it is the goal.
And I think, we have a team, right, that kind of assess the situation. And oftentimes, if there are families who it's toxic and they struggle to communicate, a lot of work is done behind the scenes, not with them together. So, the family is often, for the first couple of weeks, just in contact or communicating with their loved one's life coach. So by the time they come into a room together, it's kind of been teed up, and we would never, ever put a family in a room together if we thought it was going to be counterproductive,
right?
Or harmful to either the family or the guest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to also ask Dr. Thompson to join back in for the Q&A at this time. And then another great question that came up on the chat was, what are the funding sources for Herren Wellness treatment and the average length of stay?
Great question. So we are a private pay, self-pay program. It is $15,000 a month for 4 weeks.
With all we provide here, right, from the yoga every day and the guided meditation and the acupuncture and the massage therapy, and as Lori stated, being overstaffed, right, for a reason, not for safety, for love, right? Not like, you have so much staff here because, we want eyes on everyone. We want hearts and we want them to connect with our guests. And when I first kind of put this together, I had a lot of people who said, Chris, charge, with what you're doing here and what you're providing, I would charge $20,000 to $25,000 a month. And it could never roll off my tongue. I could never look at a mom or a dad or a husband or a wife and say, I'm charging $25,000. $15,000, I can say that with all the certainty and confidence in the world that, that loved one is going to get dropped off here and feel that it was worth every penny, and then some. So, we understand that not everyone can afford it. And we understand that, with the average length of stay being 80 days, not everyone can stay at that cost. So it is such a blessing, the services we provide and at the cost we're at. I'm super, super proud of it.
And we have another question. Do you find families are accepting of the disease of addiction, or do they find, or do you find resistance and denial from family members? If so, how do you handle it?
Mm.
You know, I think, yes, you find both, right? And, you know, it's interesting, just a personal story. I was walking through a hotel lobby and a couple of years ago, and these two moms recognized me, and we sat down for a couple of minutes to talk. And one mom was unbelievably loud and talking about her son's addiction. And when she finished, she kind of passed it to her best friend, and she whispered it to me. You know, it was very low, and she didn't talk about it the way this mom had. I think education, you know, is critical. I think we do a really good job at educating families. You know, and I think we've done fantastic work, you know, through, you know, different platforms over the years of destigmatizing, you know, substance use. And so I don't see it as much and as often, but when we do, I think education is critical. Coaches work with families individually to kind of catch them up to the recovery process, I think is important.
And it's amazing to me, like the fact that you guys do this education, this family education workshop, like every month, I think is so amazing, because even though there's a lot of information out there, even though we know way more now than we did, you know, even 10 years ago about addiction and the brain and the science and all of that, it is amazing to me how many families just don't know what's going on. They don't know what happened. They didn't see it coming. One of my favorite sayings that Chris has is, the scariest thing about addiction is you don't know who has it, because they're baffled, and it is baffling. And Dr. Thompson said it, you know, when he first started this morning, the disease of addiction is baffling, it's cunning, it's insidious. And even at this stage, and even with all the knowledge we know, families do not know what to do. I think families have, like Chris said, they've been an underserved part of the treatment industry for so long, and they need to understand, and they need, you know, this is to us, it's so critical.
That's a very good point. I'd like to add something to that. One thing, Chris asked a good question early on, directed to me, about why is it that the addiction treatment world has been slow to target families directly when it comes to treatment. I don't know the exact answer, but I know that in general, that when it comes to addiction treatment, we've had an unfortunate tendency to get stuck in fixed ways of thinking, and sticking with doing what was done in the past, rather than and then really thinking critically about what needs to happen and what needs to work. And one of the things that we sometimes, I think, do, as much as I obviously support people in recovery getting involved in addiction treatment. I'm in recovery, you know, too, myself, and very open about that with my patients. I think it's important for us to even question the way we experience treatment and look critically at the way we recovered. Recovery takes time, and it takes a slow development over time of insight into our own selves. And I think it's the same for our families. When they first see addiction right before their very eyes, they often don't see it because they can't. They just can't. It doesn't fit their preconceived view of their child or their spouse or their parent. And it takes a lot of time and pain and sometimes a miracle to get a person's eyes to open, and then understanding it for what it is. Even though a guy like me might come on and say, hey, addiction's a disease, we got to treat it like a disease. You know, that's just words. And really internalizing that and seeing that it takes time, and we've got to be patient, persistent. with people. I think it will help over time as our society in general becomes more aware of what addiction is and isn't. And so we have less of the heavy lifting to do when it comes to getting people up to speed. But until then, yeah, there's absolutely a lot of work to be done in taking people by the hand, and this means family members as well as patients, and guiding them and helping them to see what it is we're dealing with and what it is we're treating. Even in my own case, I remember when in medical school, second year, learning about substance use disorder and being told it's a disease and really doubting it, even though I had suspicions about myself at that time. I doubted whether or not it really truly was a disease. And then get this, I mean, this is mind blowing. Even after I had an intervention in my own life, went away to treatment, was thankful for it and accepted that I needed it, I came back home from treatment still with doubts in my mind about whether or not, is this really a disease? Can I really forgive myself for this? Or is this just because I am a screw up? You know, is this because there's something weak or wrong about me? It was really my patients that finally convinced me, and they didn't do it by directly arguing with me, but just by being themselves. It was my patients and seeing them for who they are. You know, who knows, maybe it was my 1000th patient where I saw a man who had so many admirable things about him, so much good in his life, who just couldn't stop drinking despite all of the pain it was causing him, where it finally really clicked in my mind, and I truly accepted and saw addiction for what it was. So, you know, it's hard. It takes time. And we just have to do everything we can to help people along. You never know when the light's going to go on.
Yeah, but I, you know, for me, I also think I think for years, I think we've isolated families, and it wasn't their problem. It was their loved one's problem. And, you know, and it wasn't their addiction. It was their loved one's addiction. But I think, as Laurie said, and I think I've witnessed it, you know, through my foundation, is creating a culture of empowerment and introducing families to their own pathway of recovery. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think for years we didn't, there was no path for them. You know, we didn't create this path. And so to watch and witness families kind of embrace, you know, recovery and take this head on. And, you know, oftentimes we see it, you know, too often that, you know, we see this mom who's doing phenomenally well and extremely open about, you know, her journey and her recovery, but their son is still struggling. And, you know, they tell you in the very beginning, it's attraction, not promotion. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it doesn't have to be only the person struggling with substance use recovery is attractive. It could be their family member. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, a healthy family member is always better served to take on, you know, a family member who's struggling. And, you know, so to create that platform, to create that space and empower families, like this is, you have to own this. And that's what we try to do here. And to see that and to see families kind of take off on their journey, you know, and I think a lot of families feel like they're heard, you know, and like their story matters, you know, not just, you know, the horrific story of someone's addiction and into recovery. You know, we get to tell our story, but families never had a platform to tell theirs, and to give them that is very empowering, and that's what we've seen here.
It's been actually really cool. We do a lot of celebrations here. We do a lot of you know, recovery celebrations with our alumni, a year, 2 years, 3 years. And when the families come and they get to talk in the group, they get to tell a little bit of their story. And I know that our guests, they get so much out of that because they get to hear it from a family perspective. That often, they don't really have a chance to do that. So that's been really, really cool.
It sounds to me like that your program, your approach is as good as it is because you listen to the people that you're helping and take seriously what they tell you they're struggling with. And that's really good. That's really smart. What I see in Herren Wellness is a program that focuses a lot on the joy of recovery and the miracle of healing, and doesn't so much focus on the downside and the blame or the negativity of addiction. Instead, the positivity of recovery. That's great.
And I say this every time I'm in front of students. Last week I was in Florida. I was in Destin, Florida, in the Panhandle, and I spoke to 6 high schools in 2 days. I often say to them, as well as their families, I think when it comes to addiction, we put so much energy and effort on the worst day, and we forget the first day. We want to show our children how bad drugs are and what they can do to you and what that person will look like in the end, rather than sitting them down and challenge them about the beginning and asking them their why. And when you walk into the doors of Herren Wellness, one of the first signs you see is discover your why. And that's applicable in many different areas, right? Just not why you're using, but why you want to stay sober. I think destigmatizing this and showing how beautiful recovery is and how fun and how cool it can be, and all the advantages that it gives us in our life, and all the people around us that we can affect with our recovery, and how attracted they become to our recovery is very important.
That's great. That's a good message.
Thank you, Lori, and thank you, Chris.
Thank you, John.
To host you today, and your commitment to the community and the recovery community is pretty amazing. So thank you for sharing what you have with us today, and we hope to partner with you again in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us, and I can't wait to see you in Virginia.
Same. Have a great
Thank you.
weekend.